Hi, I'm Aimee McKnight, Mac mentor and founder of the Mac Spa. I have been using and supporting Apple products and helping people with their technology needs for over 20 years. And one of the other things I really enjoy and look forward to after a long day of busting my brain at work is happy hour. So, in this new video series, I'll be interviewing my friends and colleagues over happy hour while we're discussing a tech topic. So, I hope you'll have a drink with us and enjoy the show, and maybe you'll even learn something new. So, my guest today is Aimee Gertz, who is a blogger, avid reader, and a good friend of mine. And we have a lot of things in common, like our name.
Yep.
and happy hour. So our happy hour drink of the day is this cool botanical herbal beverage, right?
Yes, it's not my non-alcoholic wine. It's a botanical aperitif. Whatever aperitif means, I don't know.
Really good. It's got a licorice flavor to it, which I really enjoy.
Yeah.
So we're having that, and today's topic is talking about ebooks and reading and all of those kinds of things, because Aimee reads probably 100% more than I do, even though I have some apps on my iPad and my iPhone, so I have used them. But I kind of wanted to talk about your evolution in how you became a big reader, and then when things turned from just physical books into the digital era, what that looked like and what your experience has been. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Yeah, so I have always been a big reader, as you mentioned. I remember one time when I was little, I got grounded from reading because I read so much and never did my chores. So that's been a thing that I've always done. And then, in the last year, through a pandemic, I read 127 books.
Wow.
Which hopefully I'll never have enough time to do again, but I had a lot of time last year. So so I've just always been a big reader. I worked at a bookstore when I was in college, when I very first moved here, and that was really, really fantastic for me. And let's see, my future, I did just start library science school. I do want to do some sort of historian, archival something. I'd love to work with rare documents and manuscripts. I don't know what that exactly looks like, but so when I was working at the bookstore when I was very, very young, I read this book called The Archivist, and the main character in this book, Matthias, he works at a college library, and he guards the T.S. Eliot letters that aren't out yet. And so I imagine that being an archivist will just be like what happened in that book.
Cool. I haven't read it, so it sounds exciting.
Great, yeah.
So what does it take to be an archivist?
Great question. I don't really know yet. I'm on week 2 of school, but I am doing a master's program through San Jose State University, and then there is also this crazy program in Scotland that I want to do after that I think would really help with that, because where are all the old things? They're in Scotland.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Midge. We have a special guest.
Our special guest, Midge. She likes happy hours.
Yeah, she does.
It seems like sometimes when you're doing something as a hobby, and then you realize oh my gosh, there could be a career in here somewhere. That's really cool that you're able to find that.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah, as someone who reads a lot, 127 books is a lot.
Yes.
I read 2 in the last
You're
year,
on your way.
probably.
Yeah.
Maybe 3. And one was an audiobook. Does that count?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I read the book Breath.
Oh, how was that?
That was kind of cool. They really get into the science of breathing and how it can help your health overall. So that was interesting. And they give you some breathing exercises. So
yeah,
mouth breathing is bad. That's a big takeaway.
Nobody likes to be called a mouth breather.
That's the backup. That's the backup if your nose doesn't work. But breathe through your nose. I also am reading the Phil Jackson book called 11 Rings. Yeah, about how his leadership skills led to multiple championships in coaching. So that's been interesting. But I do remember that it's been a while, maybe going on 2 years, but you used to have a book club.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one I attended was probably 2 years ago. So,
which one were you at?
I was at one that was Mexican. We were doing.
So that was the very first one we had.
The very first one.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Aimee had this cool book club that, if you want to talk about it, I think is really neat because we had a theme.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping you can start it up again someday.
Yeah, my friend Katie and I had been in Mexico City together, and then we had this idea for this book club that was books and travel and obviously food. And so, for example, for Mexico City, we read The Laguna by Barbara Kingsolver, which is one of my favorite books. She's also one of my favorite authors. It talks about Frida and Diego and historical fiction. And we made paper flowers and we had cocktails. I don't remember what we drank, maybe margaritas and Mexican food. And so, yeah, we've done, what else? We did Sweden. Yeah, so we just had a couple of different places that either she or I had traveled or we had traveled together. And yeah, it would be really great to get that going again once we can all hang out together.
I remember you had one that I got sick and I was so mad I couldn't go.
Yeah.
Because they were only like every other month, I think.
Yeah, they were.
So yeah, I was really bummed out that I missed one.
Yeah.
And then I never went back and then COVID happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, the book clubs were really awesome and something that would get something like me into reading more because I do need a little bit of a push or a good recommendation. Mm-hmm. So what are you reading now?
Right now, I'm in the middle of 3 books. I'm reading a book on meditation, and then I'm reading Andy Warhol's, I guess I'm going to call it his autobiography, but it's really like just his journal ramblings sort of, but I really like it. Really quirky and just as you would probably imagine Andy Warhol. And then I'm reading, I don't know how to say this, Piranesi by Susanna Clark. Okay. Which is kind of a newer, like I had to wait from the library for a while. I got the ebook version of that. I had to wait for quite a while, but it's really kind of crazy at the moment, but it's pretty good. Yeah. Yeah.
So in all of your days of reading, do you remember before they were digital, before ebooks? And do you remember what that transition was like?
No. I have primarily been a paper book reader, but I do certainly use, my Kindle app. I got a Kindle. I've had it for quite a while. I just use my iPad now, but I can't really remember. I remember like when Amazon became a thing when they were just selling books, but I don't actually remember being like, oh, I'm reading this on a whatever. I don't really remember that experience.
Right.
But I know, I think the Kindle came out in about 2007 or 2008, and that's when it kind of really made the shift into digital ebooks. Mm-hmm.
And that was before the iPad.
Oh, really?
Because the iPad didn't come out until 2010.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So yeah,
okay.
they had a few years as the e-reader.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I didn't have one at that time either, so I don't remember that.
I probably was like, I'm not getting that. I'm not reading a book like that. But of course you do. Yeah, it's so convenient and yeah.
And then the Nook.
Yeah, there's the Nook.
Barnes & Noble. Trying to think if there were other ones.
I think Samsung had one pretty early on too, but it didn't really take off as well. But I know they still have one. And then there was another brand that I just was reading about. They had a couple different kinds, but I'd never heard of them before. Well, yeah, so there's a couple different options.
Yeah.
These days.
And did you notice a big difference between, say, the Kindle and your iPad in the reading style, or was there something you liked better about one over the other?
My Kindle was about this big. My iPad is about this big, so that's much nicer. Just having that size.
You like the bigger screen for.
I do, yeah.
That makes sense.
Or even, reading it on your phone and you're kind of flipping. Like, that's terrible.
I tried that. And
Yeah.
That's no fun.
Yeah.
Turning the page every 5 seconds. So, yeah, I mean, I can see all of the benefits of having ebooks, obviously for travel.
Yes.
And portability. So that's nice. But
or when you're really behind for book club and you need something quick,
right,
getting it on a reader is faster than, going
Having
to the
to
bookstore or waiting for it to arrive in the mail or
right,
trying to
having
find a
go
friend who
find
has
it.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
quick, go find one.
Yep.
So, what about apps? What are your favorite apps to read books on now? So I know that there's Kindle, obviously, like we talked about. You can get a Kindle app on your iPad as well, so you don't have to have a Kindle or a Nook or whatever. So that's nice, but there's other apps too.
Well, and I just primarily use the library apps. So there's Overdrive, there's Libby. On Overdrive and Libby, you can get ebooks and audiobooks. I use Overdrive, and the book will get sent to my Kindle app somehow. It's magic. I don't understand how it works, but so then it's in my Kindle app, and I can read it from my iPad or my phone. But it's just a free book from the library.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, if your town has a library, they probably have Overdrive, and you can get these books for free. So I do like that. I use that.
And I know for, audiobooks, I know Audible is very popular. That is, I believe, also an Amazon product.
They've taken over the world.
I know. But I think that's a pretty convenient way to do things too.
So what about this Canopy app?
Canopy is cool. Yeah, it's through the library also, but it's movies, documentaries. I don't really think they do TV shows necessarily, but you can get a lot of videos on there. And it's quirky stuff. Like, you're not going to have the newest Marvel movie or whatever, but it's got older stuff and just kind of more obscure stuff. I end up watching a lot of really fun things on there. I just started watching the Ken Burns Country Music, which, is like 8 series or whatever, or 8 episodes. So they have stuff like that. And then, they do have normal movies. They're just maybe a little older or kind of more obscure, but yeah, that's a fun way to watch some different stuff for free.
Great. For free. Yeah. For free. I was remembering when the digital revolution came about, and I remember people kind of thinking that print's going out of style, everything is going digital. What are your thoughts around that?
I also would have thought that too. And I know when the ebooks got really popular, I think it was around 2010. And that was really when people were thinking, oh, this is going to take over. Nobody's going to read print books. And even now, so what we're 11 years later, it's about 75-25 print books to ebooks.
That's amazing.
So the ebooks, I mean, while certainly 25% is a lot, but it did not take over like people thought it was going to. And print books are still very popular.
I almost thought it might be flipped.
Yeah.
Like 75% of people would be e-readers.
Yep.
But we have bookstores that are still out there. So,
yeah. Yep.
Our famous tattered cover here in Denver.
Yes, yeah.
Still alive and well. So I appreciate a good print book myself. Even though I'm a technical person, I see the value in it, and there's something about having a tangible thing in your hands that I can appreciate, and I'm sure you can. Yeah. As someone who touches them a lot more than I do.
Yeah. 127 times more.
Yes.
No, 125 times more.
125. Yeah. There were those 2 books in there. I usually have a book or 2 sitting on the side of my bed that I've opened, but I just never got around. They just sit there, and I just never finish them. Yeah. So I don't know. What is there a secret to getting through a good book? I do a lot of reading before bed. Like, that's my time. But I'll sit on this couch on a Saturday morning for 6 hours and just finish a book. Like, I am still like, I should ground myself from doing it because I still don't do my chores. I read instead. I never grew out of that. Did you ever have a bad book that you had to stop reading?
Oh,
or do you usually get through?
I would pretty much finish everything because I thought if somebody wrote this and then somebody else thought it was worth publishing, like, eventually there's going to be a turn or what, maybe I just don't understand. But these days I'm like, there are so many more books to read. If I can't get through it, I should just keep going. I do, but I get the New York Times book review, and there's a newer website called The Story Graph where you can track your books, and they do a really, they ask you a lot of questions. They do a really great recommendation service on there. So I have so many books that I just kind of am, oh, that kind of sounds interesting. And I get them from the library and then I'll open them and I'm like, why did I get this? I do not want to read about this. So then there's stuff like that where I just get as much as I can. And once it's in my house, I kind of then start to parse through and go, am I really going to read this?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's hard to recommend a book because there's so much different types of subject matter and topics that maybe just don't interest you, even if it's a good read for some. So,
well, I just was reading about an article maybe on NPR and about kind of, famous people or politicians and what they're reading. And so I ended up getting a book about car making in Detroit, which at the time I thought, oh yeah, this kind of sounds interesting. And by the time I got it, I was like, I don't actually want to read a whole book about this. Like maybe an article, but an entire book about car making in Detroit.
How big was the book?
About that big.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds interesting, but yeah, I'm probably in the same boat because I can't get through most books.
I'd watch a movie on it, but I'm not going to read a book on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of stuff where I'm just like, oh, well, might as well get it from the library and see.
Aimee has a blog that's really great. I would recommend it. Tell us all about it.
Okay.
It's coming back.
Yeah. It's called The Book Nomad. So I started it, I was traveling quite a bit and really putting a lot of thought into what book I wanted to read when I was in the place. Did I want to read a book about the place or a book that sort of captured the feeling? Like the one I think the most was capture the feeling in Moab. I read Joan Didion's The Year of Magical Thinking. And then I read one of Aldous Huxley's, I can't remember what it's called, but he was like on drugs, just very Moab feeling kind of books. So not necessarily about Moab, but like the feeling you're trying to get when you're there. Sometimes that's hard to capture because you're just going to like San Diego or whatever. So it's like finding books that take place in San Diego or just by authors who are from there, kind of just making some connection to the book or the place I was traveling to. So yeah, I haven't been writing a lot in the last year. I basically went home to Bismarck twice. That was really the only traveling I did, except last weekend I was in wacky Victor, Colorado, and I did take a couple books with me. So I am working on a post for that I'm really excited about because it'll be my first one in over a year in my old style of doing things. I do also just sometimes post random things on there or like little poems that I write that I think are funny or whatever. So it's kind of a mishmash of things.
Well, I appreciate it and I'm looking forward to the new ones coming out.
Thanks. Did I say that is thebooknomad.com? Did I say that? Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Thebooknomad.com.
Thebooknomad.com. Well, thank you so much for inviting me over and having this conversation. I hope it's enlightening as well.
Cheers.
Cheers. And that's a wrap. Thank you for joining us today. For more about the MacSpa, go to themacspa.com, or for tech tips, go to youtube.com/themacspa. If you have a great idea for a tech topic you'd like to hear about, please leave it in the comments. See you next time.